Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age as well as zone coverage and bring me the news. My co-host is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age, which has a new look, by the way, which you should go and check out.
Yep.
Very snazzy over there. But we do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. If you miss us, we're available in podcast form on Apple, Spotify the very next day. I don't know why my eye is itching, but we'll work around that. However you consume us, though, rate, comment, subscribe, like, do all those cool YouTube and Spotify, Apple things so you never miss a new episode. Adam, I'm not one for small talk, so we're just going to dive right into it. Trey Lance is back in the news again. The Vikings and Trey Lance, it's almost like Kirk Cousins and Kyle Shanahan. It just never dies. We just keep hearing about it over and over. But NFL's Ian Rappaport said that several teams are looking to do a trade for the Marshall native. Hey, he's from Minnesota. And a lot of people wondered, hey, wonder if the Vikings were one of those teams. Well, Pro Football Talks Mike Florio reported from an anonymous source, gotta love those this time of year, that the Vikings and 49ers talked about Trey Lance at the NFL scouting combine. So to start off today, I will ask you straight up, Adam, what is the percentage that Trey Lance winds up a Minnesota Viking?
I'd probably go right now. I'd put it at like 48 and 48-52 be the ratio. 52% he's not there, 48 he is. I think there's a good chance because there's too much to connect the dots between the two teams that you could see it happening. There's other teams too that have plenty of connections too as well. You got the Titans. They just got a new GM who's coming from the Niners. They need a quarterback to replace Ryan Tannehill. And there's plenty of other teams that need quarterbacks as well. And the Texans, they just hired DeMeco Ryans from the 49ers. They might be interested in him since it doesn't seem like they're too interested in CJ Stroud if he falls to them. But yeah, I think the chances there's a chance for sure, especially because the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, he's still only under contract until 2024. So right now you have to have at least some sort of plan. And if you're gonna invest, if you don't think you're going to be able to land one of the quarterbacks that you like in this year's draft class, then Trey Lance might be a good person to think about investing in. He's still 22. He hasn't played a lot in the NFL. I know a lot of people are out there like, oh, he hasn't been good in the NFL. Well, he hasn't really played.
And the game he played in was in a monsoon.
Yeah, and then he got hurt the next game.
Yes.
So it's really difficult to judge him based on his NFL production, how good he can be, especially because when he's still 22, and then he was good in college. He was really good. So people tend to just forget about that, how really, really good he was in college, and he has a lot of good traits. He would be going in an offense with Kevin O'Connell, where they would play to his strengths, try and get the most out of him. I don't think they would run him as much as Kyle Shanahan wanted to. They would, let him use his running ability to, escape pressure and things and create different things. But I don't think it would be it wouldn't be a Lamar Jackson type of offense where he's going to get 10 carries a game regardless. So that would be interesting. But there's a chance too because and the Niners don't have a first or a second round pick this year, so they're looking to get something. Would I be okay if the Vikings gave up their first this year for Trey Lance? I don't know about
rich.
Yeah, I don't know about that. If it was like we give you a first in Trey Lance, and then you get our second next year, maybe. But I don't know. I would be fine if it was the Niners were we want your third round pick this year. It's okay, fine, take it, because that seems like the price that they can probably afford. It's a lower risk still, and right now you still get to take advantage of Trey Lance's rookie contract. Even if you sit him for a year, you still get a year to take advantage of that contract. and he's from Minnesota, obviously. So there's gonna be that connection. The Wilfs would love that.
Yeah.
But I still, yeah, I think there's a lot of upside to trying to potentially add him. So I think the chances right now, 48%, he's there. He's with the Vikings. 52, he's not.
I think the first thing I hear when I hear about Trey Lance rumors is, well, trade for Kirk. You can't trade Kirk. Like, Kirk's got no trade clause. You can't do that. They can coexist on the same roster.
Yeah.
I know Trey Lance has a $9 million cap hit, which would have to be worked out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would think, like, here's the thing. So if they trade for Trey Lance, you basically take a flyer on him, right? You see how he develops in a year. If he does the whole Kellen Mond thing, you go, okay, we're out. I mean, that's where I say you don't give up your first, because if he just looks like a train wreck behind the scenes, well, then you have a problem. Like that's going to put you in a big hole. But if it's something along the lines of a 3rd round pick, I think that's probably the magic number. I think that would be a good trade for the Vikings. Get a guy, have him sit behind Kirk for a year. And if Trey Lance comes in with his track record, the guy's barely played football in the last 3 years, right? He had a couple of spot starts in his rookie year. Last year, we mentioned he played in that monsoon, then he broke his leg. And even the year before that, the FCS season was canceled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So his last full season was 4 years ago. He hasn't played a lot of football. So a lot of people who are like, well, he sucked when he was on the field. Go back and watch Lamar Jackson during his rookie year, because it did not look like he was going to be a franchise quarterback. And there's still some people out there who think he's not a franchise quarterback. But like, when you get actual reps at quarterback as a first string quarterback, and I think in that offense, he could definitely do the billing for the 49ers. He just hasn't had that opportunity. I think the other thing we need to consider is that I think the 49ers are just fed up with it and like just done, because John Lynch has the title of general manager, but offensive genius Kyle Shanahan runs that team. And there seemed to be a disconnect between those two the second that trade was made. Kyle Shanahan talks about his prototypical quarterback as Kirk Cousins. And you have to ask yourself then, what does Kirk Cousins do well? He's a pocket passer. He goes through his reads. He's accurate. He minimizes risks. Those are all things that Trey Lance doesn't do. He's off the cuff. His accuracy is a little bit waning. He's more of a running quarterback. He's more mobile. Like, remember when they made that trade, there was a rumor that the 49ers wanted Mac Jones. Yeah. So there is a chance the 49ers are sitting there just viewing this as a sunk cost and like, let's get something for him. I know they're going to push for a first rounder. I know they're going to push for a second rounder. But if it's a third, would you rather have somebody like Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Tanner McKee compared to Trey Lance? I would take Trey Lance, and I would see what I could do with him. If he sucks and you have like a third rounder invested, you just go, okay, didn't work. Like, you took a swing, right? And I think that's more of a swing towards a franchise quarterback than, just, okay, well, we're going to take a quarterback in the 3rd round. And the other thing, I don't think I spit this out, but if Kirk Cousins is upset that Trey Lance is there and like, oh my God, you guys don't like me. Bye. Well, see it, dude. Like, honestly, this is what's happening. We are moving on from you. Like, every sign, the fact the Vikings are looking at every quarterback in the draft, the fact that the Vikings are talking about Trey Lance, they have an eye towards the future. And sorry, dude, you're 35 years old. You're not in it. So, I mean, if you get sad and like, oh, I want to go play for Cut, do it. I mean, at this point, I know Kirk is great, but I mean, this whole season has been about ripping Band-Aids off, and Kirk Cousins has to be one of them. He's got to be one of them.
Yeah. I think you just mentioned it. Like, even if Trey Lance comes in and he's not good, he's not the franchise quarterback, you took that chance, you took that risk. That's all you can ask of this regime, to just take those chances, take a risk, and this would be one. So if they did it, I'd be fine. People, I think a lot of us we still have plenty of questions about, Trey Lance, if he can be good or not. No one really knows. So people who are declaring that he's good or bad, you really don't know right now. And to Depends on the system, depends on his weapons, depends on his health, everything. Just don't know. But if Kwesi, Adolfo Mensa, and Kevin O'Connell feel like they can bring in Trey Lance and help him, and he can help the Vikings offense get to a different level, present that illusion of complexity that Kevin O'Connell likes to talk about so much, then then go for it. If this is their guy, and they don't think they can get a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson, then go for it. Like, because you don't have much
He's
time.
very
Like
similar to like Anthony Richardson.
like
to
you
be
said,
honest.
like they only have 3 years left on their current contracts, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell. So it's not like they have a ton of time to make moves. If they want something to happen, if they want to have time to develop a quarterback, a move probably has to be made this year. So they have to, and this could be one way to do it. And I think it's very timely that this report from Ian Rappaport came out, who works for the NFL. So obviously has team sources. So this is coming from the Niners. We're like, hey guys, it's like almost time for the draft. So we just want to let you know that we're fielding calls for Trey Lance. We're not calling anybody, but if you want to call us about him, just go right ahead, and we'll be willing to listen to whatever you want to offer, and maybe we can talk about it.
It's a lot how Rick Spielman would go up during his pre-draft press
We don't
conference and be like,
intend.
we're fielding a lot of calls right now. I'm
Yeah.
basically like Ranger Smith, like when Yogi Bear steals some picnic baskets. Like I really just dated myself with that reference, but go look it up, kids. All the phones are ringing and he's got like one on each, ear or whatever. Like I look at the market, there's a lot of teams that could use Trey. I mean, I think the Niners could get a bigger pick than we think for him. The Texans, you mentioned it. There are some connections there. If they're not sold on a quarterback in this class or just don't want him to get killed, because that's a terrible infrastructure for a quarterback right now, Trey Lance would be a good bridge. The Titans, I mean, you mentioned Rand Carthon's in the front office now as general manager. Mike Vrabel loves running the football, and Trey Lance can run, so there is that.
They drafted Malik Willis, so they obviously like that playing style or whatever, or at least the old GM did, who got fired.
The Commanders, I don't really know what they're doing there. I couldn't tell you who's I think Taylor Heineke left, so like they don't have a quarterback right now. That's not ideal. And then you have the Bucks, who Kyle Trask isn't it, man.
You mentioned the Falcon. You skimmed over the Falcons. That could be
this is true. Yes,
too. Yes. And then even the Lions. I wouldn't. I've seen a couple Lions reporters, or whatever, being like, they got 2 first-round picks. They should take a little peek and see if they can get Trey Lance. It's not like Jared Goff is. He's okay. He's in the Kirk Cousins treading water area where like he's okay, but he's not gonna get. He's been to a Super Bowl, but he wasn't the reason the Rams went to the Super Bowl.
He's a starter in this league. He's accurate. Yeah. Blah blah blah.
Like, just keep an eye on the Lions. But I think the Niners, if they trade Lance, they would like to get him out of the NFC. If in fact he ends up being good.
And you know what, too? You know who the 49ers should target? And like this would be really interesting if they do. Like, let's say the Titans get Froggy and they give them their first-round pick, right? They should draft Hendon Hooker. Because honestly, like he would be a great quarterback in that system where he's all of those things that I mentioned. He's a little bit more mobile. Yeah, he's got the knee thing, but I mean, one read offense, basically. Like that was one of the criticisms of Kirk Cousins is like he locks into his first read. Well, that's because Kyle Shanahan's offense is a one read and go offense. Like there's not a lot of options. I mean, there's a lot of options, but I mean, is this read there? Okay. Or the ball is supposed to be here. It's supposed to be on time. Like all those little things. I think Hendon Hooker could operate that great. And you could probably shove that in my face and be like, that's why the Vikings should draft him. But I think that, if the Niners went ahead with Brock Purdy and Hendon Hooker as that insurance policy in case like Brock comes back too soon and he's got a noodle arm. Okay, well, we got Hendon Hooker. It's just a knee. So tis a flesh wound, just a torn ACL. Last question on this. What does all this say about Kirk Cousins with the Vikings doing all this due diligence?
It's another sign that the Vikings are looking to the future and they're looking to to move on. It's not necessarily saying like Kirk Cousins is automatically gone after the season. There's a very good chance that it happens, but right now the Vikings are like, Kirk, if you go ball out and you lead us to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, then there might be a good chance that you come back. But we don't see that happening, so we're gonna do what's best for us and look to the future and scout these young quarterbacks and look into some young quarterbacks that we could trade for and invest in our future because right now you're not the guy that's probably going to lead us to where we want to get within the next 5 years. So
Yeah,
it's just another sign that they're ready. They're ready to move on from Kirk Cousins. They can say whatever they want to say, like he's our guy or whatever. Like we
he's
can't wait.
accurate. He's a
Can't
starter in this
we
league.
can't wait to see him in the offense in year 2, see what he can do. I'm gonna be rooting for him and all the stuff that Kevin O'Connell says. But yeah, it's just another sign that the Vikings are looking ahead past Kirk Cousins.
Well, let's look ahead to some of the things that were said at OTAs this week. The Vikings got together. It was basically like syllabus day. I think I said celibate day. Other words, same start to the word, just different meaning. Like, you get some letters and mixed around and whatever. So, but basically, yeah, Lewis Seen was one of the people who talked to the media. It is interesting seeing who talked to the media because like you expect Adam Thielen and Eric Kent is like, oh, those guys aren't gone. We got Jordan Hicks up here talking to us. We have Lewis Seen and like a whole bunch of like KJ Osborne is doing interviews. It's like, wait, what? But Lewis Seen, it looks like his recovery is going very well. Seen says he intends to be ready to play at the beginning of the season, but, quote, I'm not going to mess anything up or be in a rush. He worked out with the Vikings on Tuesday. I assume he worked out with them. And they're not doing on-field stuff. They're just like basically lifting weights and being like, and going in there and be like, I'm Brian. I'm your new defensive coordinator. Hey, what's up? Actually, it was probably like, all right, listen, you MFers, let's see what's going on here. Harrison Smith said, I completely forgot he was hurt. So I'll ask you this. How much of a difference do you think Lewis Seen can make on the Vikings defense this year?
Oh, a lot. I think Brian Flores will be able to get a lot more out of him than Ed Donatel was going to ever be able to, just because of the aggressiveness that Flores likes to utilize in his defense. And Seen is perfect for that. Seen has a lot of speed. He hits with power. He can tackle well. I think he's a great fit for Flores' defense. So I think if he can be healthy and stay healthy, his remember his injury was a freak accident. His ankle got caught up in the turf. Someone fell on it. Like that's a football injury, but it's also just a very low chance of happening again. That's not one where you're like it's gonna be something that's gonna happen every year because it's not. Now the one thing I would worry about is last year at this time, everyone was excited about Seen and him. Everyone was basically penciling him into the starting lineup, and then he wasn't in there to start the season, and people were a little worried, like, is he picking up this defense or not? Now, was that partly because of Ed Donatel's decision, or was it someone else? So is he going to be is he going to be slow to learn the Flores system, or is Flores going to just put him into the fire and say whatever, because it's not like this defense was good last year anyway? So what's he's going to make mistakes whenever he gets on the field. He's going to make mistakes. Now, is it worth keeping him on the field because he's going to make more plays than mistakes? That might be something that they consider, because you could either have him on the field and he can make some great plays, make some mistakes, or you could have Cam Bynum who's on the field who's also going to make mistakes and make some okay plays and get run over by the ref. But yeah, I'm excited about Seen, but I'm keeping my expectations low just because I feel like we're kind of in a similar spot last year where everyone was like, yes, this kid's going to come in. He's going to, just be a game breaker and make a huge impact on the Vikings defense. And then he wasn't a starter. He was a special teams guy.
I'm really curious as to what impact Steen would have made last year for the Vikings. had he not gotten hurt.
Mhm.
Like, I wonder, like Brian Asamoah didn't play at all during the early part of the season. And
Right.
then towards the end, he was making some plays and everybody's really excited about him. I wonder if as the year went on, would Scene have gotten some of those snaps as they were resting Harrison? Like, I think they put Josh Metellus out there, who's
Yep.
basically a special teamer. Like, would they have used Scene a little bit? And would Donatel have schemed Scene a little bit differently?
No.
Would we have seen? Well, and here's like one area where it could have happened. I don't think it would have, but Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks were so slow in coverage. Scene was kind of seen as like this hybrid safety linebacker guy.
Right.
Would they have put Scene in the linebacker as a linebacker, as a guy that could blitz, a guy that could cover, and all of those things? We just don't know because he wound up breaking his leg in the first.
I could take a very good guess that Ed Donatel would not use him like that because he just didn't do anything at all.
But I mean, they did talk about 3 safety looks at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Something happened between the draft and the beginning of the season where Ed Donatel said, I'm just going to play shell defense the entire time. I don't think Ed Donatel came in here and was like, we're just going to play shell defense and back off and everything. Like, he probably looked around, saw the lack of speed, and I'm not defending Ed Donatel for anything.
Please don't.
It's just this roster was not ready for the type of defense that Kevin O'Connell wanted to play.
Right.
So that, I mean, if you probably, gun to Ed Donatel's head, like, why did you play shell? He's like, this roster sucks. Like, that would probably be what he was saying. And, with Flores in here, and we'll talk about him in just a little bit. That's good. Let's talk about Brian Flores a little bit. Like, you listen to some of the players that are talking right now. Harrison Smith said, I like his mentality, how he relays information, and how he thinks about things. Jordan Hicks said the aggressiveness, the ability to come in with a mindset of we're going to be a tough, good, physical, fast, and aggressive defense. Scene said he likes to let you loose and go play ball. I like to play fast football and let it loose. That's his scheme, what he's known for. I'm really excited to learn his defense. Like, Brian Flores is basically the anti-Donatel, like Kevin O'Connell was the anti-Mike Zimmer. Like, they are just two different things. And I think that Lewis Scene is going to be one of the players that benefits the most because they're going to use him like a rocket all over the field if he can get down the defense, because that's one thing that's not being talked about. It's physically, he is a freak. He is a specimen. Mentally, he's probably a smart dude, but he is more of and Ed Donatel mentioned this, he is more of an on-field learner than a classroom learner.
Yeah.
So how long does it take for him to like master the defense and know that he's not going to be a liability out there?
Yep.
That's going to be the key for Lewis Scene.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with it. I mentioned that too. Like, even at Georgia, there was some, I know some people that covered Georgia. They talked about Lewis Scene was kind of came along slowly when he first got there, and by the time he was like a junior or a senior, he was just flying high and doing well in that defense. So it might take a little longer. Maybe it, because we should kind of view this year as Scene's rookie year, because he played in 3 games, 3.5 last year. So this is basically his rookie, and he's got to learn an entirely new defense again. He does get a little bit more time. He didn't have to spend his offseason training to be a draft pick, so he gets like a couple extra months. Like, as soon as Brian Flores got hired, he probably was able to get the playbook or the scheme and just start learning things immediately. So that might benefit him more. But it sounds like everyone's very excited to play in Brian Flores' defense, just because they get to have fun on defense. Yeah. They're not just standing there like playing zone coverage all day, hoping someone doesn't, get behind them. They're going out there and making plays. If they miss a tackle, so what? They're going to get another chance on the next play. So it's nice to hear the players are excited to play defense, because I don't think we've heard that for a while with the Vikings. Not since probably I would say this reminds me of like 2014 when Mike Zimmer first came in, and players were just like excited to play in his system, and how much different it was than Leslie Frazier's system. So it's it's encouraging to hear their excitement about Brian Flores.
Well, one of the players who is also excited about Flores is Harrison Smith. And you mentioned, players were kind of annoyed with just standing
Old
back and
man.
playing zone. What's that?
Harrison Smith, old man.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were looking down. So I thought you were looking down at your phone like there's some
No.
breaking news or something. But
Mm-mm.
yeah, he was very upset, especially after that Giants game. Just like, why are you
Mhm.
having me out in the parking lot? This is
Mhm.
dumb. Harrison Smith actually admitted that he contemplated retirement before deciding to return to the Vikings, though. He said, "It is not the first year I thought about retirement. You can't play forever, and it's a big world out there. Lots of things going on. It's fun to think about. Try to dabble in things here and there, but I can still run all right. I can still catch all right." He went on to cite the Wolves' investment in the franchise and Brian Flores' hiring as reasons he came back. It just felt right, he said. Do you think that we'll see a better version of Harrison Smith in 2023, or is this going to be the Adam Thielen lots of game left tour?
No, I think they'll be back to the closer to the Harrison Smith that we came to know and love in Zimmer's scheme, because I think Flores is going to let him do more of the things that Zimmer allowed him to do, to really just kind of just roam on the field, be wherever he wants, show blitz, don't show blitz, backpedal super fast before the ball snap, things like that we're used to seeing from Harrison Smith, because he was kind of just babysitting last year when he was out on the field, just making up for, the lack of skill around him. Just, he had to sit back in coverage. He didn't get a lot of chances to blitz because, well, they didn't really blitz a lot anyway. So, how many times did we see, Harrison Smith makes a tackle in the backfield, for a loss on a running back? We didn't see that last year, just because he did, and it's not because he wasn't able to, it's just because he didn't get the opportunities to do that, because he was never really brought to the line of scrimmage, like we're used to seeing from him. So I think he's gonna enjoy being in Flores' system. I think the concern we should have with Harrison is just like his durability. He is getting older. He has suffered a few injuries last year and recently as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Like he's probably going to play better, but you also have to worry about his durability moving forward. And then you mentioned the retirement thing. Do you think, after you mentioned that, do you think he would have signed with another team if he didn't play for the Vikings, or would he retired?
That's a great question because I don't really know. I mean, when you look at where Harrison Smith could have landed, it's hard for me to like think of a better landing spot. Like he could go ring chasing.
Yeah.
Like he could wind up in Kansas
Chiefs.
City,
Yep.
or he could wind up, in
Bengals.
Philadelphia or the Bengals or some other good team. But this scheme that Brian Flores runs, I think suits to his strengths.
Yep.
And I think like the other thing with Harrison Smith coming back to is the leadership aspect, because there aren't going to be a lot of familiar faces on this defense. No. You lost Patrick Peterson, you lost Dalvin Tomlinson. Maybe Harrison Phillips is like that leadership guy right now, but you lose Eric Hendricks. Like I said, like the press conferences were just telling, because it's like, Jordan Hicks is talking. Lewis Cine is talking. We'll probably hear from Cam Bynum at some point, like we did last year, who said he wanted to be greater than Tom Brady.
It's going well. That sounds well.
It's going very well. He had that interception against the Jets, though. That was where he was like, be right here, and then it was right there. I mean, I'm all for Harrison Smith being back. The age is a little bit of a concern if he does drop off, but I mean, having that guy, especially for Lewis Cine, they like go to and be like, hey, how did you do this? Because Lewis Cine is basically a faster version of Harrison Smith.
Oh yeah.
So that makes me very excited to see. And remember too, when Kevin O'Connell was hired, he talked about Harrison Smith as like this like freelancing type of safety thing, and it didn't happen. So like I said, something happened between then and the beginning of the season where Ed Donatel said, no, we're not doing any of that. So that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason Harrison Smith's his nickname is Harry the Hitman. It's because he used to just like lay the wood on everybody back in the day, and I think a lot of people forget that how much of a great he would just be able to deliver great hits on people before they became, I guess, a little bit more illegal to play the way that he played. And I think Scene has some of those skills as well.
This is just a random thought, but like, you ever realize that Bret Hart's sharpshooter was or finisher was called the sharpshooter because he was called the hitman? Like, it makes sense,
Nope,
right?
I didn't, but yes, it does make sense
Like, I just hitman
because
wrestling brain.
it's really
Yes.
called like what, like a is it a crab?
Yeah, I think it's like
Boston crab
it's
or
like a
something like that?
modified Texas cloverleaf Boston
Yeah,
crab thing. But
yeah.
fun fact, you aren't technically related unless you've put your brothers and sisters in the sharpshooter for multiple minutes. Anyway, let's end this with some general manager rankings. So yes, we are at that point. These actually dropped a week ago, but we haven't talked about them.
Mhm.
And when I was kind of like, how should we end this? I found this on the Viking Age website. And Greg Rosenthal of NFL.com dropped his general manager rankings, and Kwesi was ranked too new to be ranked. But here's what he said. Managing a team in transition, Adolfo Mensa helped the Vikings win the NFC North with smart moves in free agency and a timely trade for TJ Hawkinson. His first draft class is off to a slow start with very little production despite 4 picks in the top 66. The Vikings' decision to start weaning themselves off the Kirk Cousins narcotic by passing on an extension this offseason was integral in setting up the franchise's next phase. Is there anything in that quote that you disagree with, Adam?
That I disagree with, not really, but I really thoroughly enjoy the Kirk Cousins narcotic line there because
It's like a drug. It's like
it really.
dopamine.
Oh, I need some more. Yeah.
Give me that check down on 4th and 3, baby. Or
It's-
4th and 8, sorry.
It's that special Kirk Cousins narcotic. It's called Frick.
You take it, you say frick. I've broken Adam.
All right, back. No, I mean he was. I think a lot of people know that Quincy Adolfo-Mensa wasn't really given the keys to the car. Like they gave him like half a key last year. They kind of gave him like a used car, and they're like, see what you can do with this year, and next year we'll work on buying you a new one. We'll start saving up some money to buy a new one. And he was like, okay. So he got rid of some parts and put in some new ones and tried to soup it up as much as he could. And they won 13 games, and then they lost to the Giants in the first round of the playoffs. And so the battery died in the car because it's an old battery. So this year he's getting more ability to kind of mold this car into something that he feels will work best for the organization. And a lot of people are a little skeptical of some of the moves that he's making, especially with Kirk. I know some people are like, oh, I don't know about this KOC and Kwesi duo now. I'm like, they're in year 2. Can we give them, a little bit? Like this isn't what I don't know. A lot of GMs that have come in and immediately just been like contender. Like doesn't usually happen like that. So like this takes time, especially when you're put in the situation that Kwesi is, where he doesn't get a lot of control the first year. He kind of has to wait to the second year to kind of do his thing, and he's been doing his thing. They got rid of Thielen, they got rid of Kendricks. They're moving on from some older guys. They're likely going to move on from Dalvin Cook. They're likely going to move on from Zadarius Smith. Who knows what happens with Danielle Hunter? Harrison Smith is pretty close to being on his way out too. Like things are moving in the right direction. And so it's still too early to judge on like how well things are going for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa. But I mean, taking what he was given in his first year and the team winning 13 games, I think is a really good start. So I can't be mad about that.
Yeah. I like the job he's done overall, but there are some things that you can kind of look at, especially this offseason, where it is a young general manager trying to learn his stripes.
Mhm.
I think there were a lot of desperate moves last year to go for a first round playoff loss because, like, they never said the word Super Bowl when they were talking about this team. Like,
Right.
we're going to get in the tournament and see what happens, and we're going to win the North, and we're going to do all this stuff. Like, that is their goal every year, is to win the NFC North
Yeah.
because they get a home playoff game. It didn't mean anything last year.
No.
So when you look back at last year, you look at some of the moves that Kwesi made. A lot of people are applauding the TJ Hawkinson trade. And there's a good reason to do that, but it almost seems like overkill in hindsight because Hawkinson was brought in because Adam Thielen declined.
Mhm.
That's why it happened.
And Irv Smith wasn't playing.
Correct. And the whole KJ Osborne thing also was a big question mark.
Right.
That was kind of weird. I'm very interested to see how KJ does this year. I'll put it that way. But when I look at this draft class, it is loaded at tight end. One guy that I know very well from my time at the Brookings Register is Tucker Kraft, who is, I believe, 6'5", 260 pounds.
Yep.
He ran a 4.48 to 4.52 at his pro day.
Oh, wow.
And yes, the dude can. Now, his first one was like a little higher in the 4.5s, but
4.5 for that guy, that size is still
but yes,
very fast.
very fast. He is tight end 6 in this class. This class is deep. So when I look at TJ Hawkinson, I go, yeah, great. We're gonna pay him. He's gonna be a Viking for a long, long time. But I ask, like, would the Vikings have just been okay if they didn't do that? Because they would still have their second round pick, which we talked about Trey Lance a little bit. Wouldn't it be nice to just dangle a second rounder to the 49ers? Like, hey, take it or leave it. Or even dip into this tight end class and hope for the best. They still would have signed Josh Oliver anyway. I think that was just something they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But you look at that and you look at some of the other trades that were made, like Jalen Reagor, not great. Ross Blacklock, not great. You're down 4th and 6th round picks because of those. And the biggest thing with Kwesi is that I think he tipped his hand this offseason. Like, there were some moves that everybody could see coming a mile away, like releasing Eric Kendricks and Adam Thielen. But Dalvin Cook and Zadarius Smith are 2 players that you could have gotten something in return for, and they're about to be released because everybody knows you want to get rid of them now. Part of that was because Zadarius had that weird post on his social media account. Like, Dalvin Cook, it's kind of like you had trade offers right away then. Even with a bad shoulder, people were offering you stuff reportedly. We don't know if that's true or not, but, we don't know what's happening with Cook. We know there is a 0% chance he's coming back next year. And maybe you could be generous and give it like 2 or 3. But I mean, the way his agent is talking, the way that the Vikings have talked about Dalvin Cook, I would be shocked if he is in the backfield next year. Zadarius Smith, very same way, because he wants more money. And the Vikings are like, no, we have to like allocate this somewhere else. Like, if you're a GM, why would you give up anything for these guys? And they were substantial parts to the Vikings team. Even like Danielle Hunter now skipping OTAs, that drives that price down because people know he's pissed off and unhappy. And they know they have to give him a giant contract if they sign him. So, I mean, Kwesi is young. He's still navigating this. But I would put him in like either the middle third or the bottom third as of right now.
I'd put him in the. I don't blame him for making the Hawkinson trade because they were cruising, they were winning a lot of games, and I think in the NFL, you're not guaranteed to win that many games every year, and I think they were trying to take advantage of their success last season, so they made a move like Hawkinson, who they thought could help them more than someone like Thielen or KJ Osborne could. So I don't blame him for doing that. The Reagor trade is weird. The Blacklock trade is weird. So yeah, but yeah, I think he's middle of the pack right now. Like I said, it's still too early. Like the draft class that he had last year, they could all make an impact this year. I think they're trying to do that. So that's still out there. It's hard you can't judge that too early, but I'd keep him right in the middle for now. It's just it's too early, and yeah, he made some mistakes. but he was a
He
rookie
should be
G.
perfect. No GM makes mistakes.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Rick Spielman never did that. He never drafted
Never.
Kristen Ponder. He never drafted the German Randy Moss for no reason. He used a draft pick on that. He never
I
drafted a kicker. He had drafted 2 kickers. He drafted a punter. He drafted 2 long snappers.
Can we
So,
go back to the German Randy Moss thing, because that's hilarious to me. It's still funny to me
such a
now
PR.
because, like,
It's such a PR pick.
well,
Such
it
a PR.
absolutely was, and I remember watching it, and like, Rich Eisen and like those guys on NFL Network, they were so happy he got drafted, and they're just like, Mobo, yeah, look at him, he's like cool, and then he gets the mini camp, he's like, I don't like the Mobo, do not call me the Mobo.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if like Mike Zimmer,
He wanted nothing to do with him.
Back in the day,
nothing to do.
Remember, I don't know how big of a Simpsons fans you are, but remember when Santa's little helper like ran away, and then Mr. Burns caught him, and like they turned him into a killer, and they pried his eyes open watching like highlights of like dogs getting like hit with newspapers and stuff, and like he turns into like this murderous killer. That's exactly what I think with Mobo. Mobo is probably like, I get to go to America and play the football. I'm like, I guess he sounds like Borat or something, but he's like, I get to play the football and play with Mike Zimmer, and like he met Mike Zimmer, and he's like, you're a killer now. I hate you.
He's a tight end now.
Yeah. Is he still bouncing around with like that international program or whatever?
He's a free agent. I'm looking at his Wikipedia right now. He let's see. Right now he's
go
back.
ahead.
I think he's back in the German Football League. Was his most recent team. He was with the Vikings, and then he went with the He was with the Bengals for 3 seasons as like a
because I remember the NFL had some kind of international exemption program where like if you had an international, like if you found somebody who played rugby in like Australia or something, you could bury him on your depth chart for like a couple of years as a practice squad guy or something. But it's like one of the funniest picks in recent memory is just him coming up and be like, I do not like the Mobo. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he returned to the German Football League in 2021, and he had 9 touchdowns. So
remember his I'm just going on and on about this, but remember his highlights too? There's like guys that are like half his size.
He's playing as 8th graders.
Yeah, it's like that Adult Swim thing. I don't remember the exact, but he's like tossing guys around, just like F5ing like linebackers and stuff. Like
he does. I will say this: he does have a crazy spider chart where it's just he tested off the charts. Can't play football.
Why not? Right?
Can't play football, but he tested off the charts. So.
Billy, this is Mort's Bowringer. He tested off the charts. His defect: he cannot play football.
Yeah.
Let's look at some of the top GMs in the league just very quickly on Greg Rosenthal's list. Number 5, he had John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan of 49ers fame. Number 4, he had Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott of the Bills. Number 3, Duke Tobin of the Bengals. Number 2, Brett Veach of the Chiefs. And number 1, Howie Roseman of the Eagles. Weird the top 2 Super Bowl teams would be at the top of the list. I don't know.
I will say this about the Bengals. I keep an eye on them not being able to sign Joe Burrow. So they are a cheap franchise, and he's going to want a lot of fully guaranteed money. And right now, Bengals can't afford to pay him.
It took forever for the Bengals to even build an indoor practice facility.
Right.
Like Pat McAfee had to like rib them for like 3 years straight to get it built. And they just sold naming rights to their stadium, something they said they would never do because they know it's coming.
Yeah, maybe
they know what's coming.
Okay.
Like imagine being a franchise. Like Vikings fans haven't had this franchise quarterback in forever. And imagine if like the Wolves were like, God, we don't want to pay this guy. Like, oh no,
the Vikings used to be like
Burrow.
That. They used to be like the cheap
back
franchise.
In the day.
Yeah, they were
because they gave Dante
Culpepper
that big $100 million contract, like 2 cents were guaranteed.
They were known in like the 80s and 90s as like one of the cheapest franchises. Like they would lowball you
But it's amazing in this day and age because there's so much revenue. Like
Yeah,
NFL
yeah.
Sunday ticket costs
Yeah.
like $600 right now for everybody. And like you're sitting there being like, I ain't paying Justin Herbert. This sucks. Why do we have to pay a quarterback? Like, really?
It's not even your money, dude. Just give it to him.
Oh shit. Worst GMs. George Payton of the Broncos.
Oh, poor guy.
One of us. Nick Caserio of the Texans. I actually wrote this in reverse. So actually it's he only ranked 25, so he had 7 of them as like 2 new. But Scott Fitterer of the Panthers, Nick Caserio of the Texans, and George Payton of the Broncos. That dude, my God. Like I remember when like Rick Spielman was kind of on the fence back in 2019 before Kyle Rudolph pushed off and that went over the Saints. And they're like, Kevin Stefanski and George Payton are the future. And oh my God.
I don't know. It could have been different because I don't know. Payton I don't know how much input he had on the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett and the trading for Russell Wilson. I'm sure he had plenty of, input and he helped put the trade together and everything, but I'm sure that was facilitated by other people in the building that
and Nathaniel Hackett was hired because they wanted Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Just like the Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive
and they're not going to get Aaron Rodgers.
I so hope that trade doesn't go through. So like they sign Randall Cobb and be like, what the hell do we do with Randall Cobb? Shit.
Well, what happens? Like, what happens if that doesn't? What do the Packers do? They're just like, just take your money and just hang out in your darkness retreat or whatever. I guess. Well, we're gonna play with Jordan Love. Like, what do you do?
I still want it to be like WWE where Aaron Rodgers just shows up. Like there's just like the lights go out and all of a sudden there's like these psychedelic lights and like somebody call my mom and like Aaron Rodgers is just walking out, just like drugged out. Like, how did I get here, man? I don't even know. Like I was with the Packers 1 minute and then I blinked and went into my darkness to retreat. And I took like some uppers and downers and like some other type of pills. And like, I had to go see a doctor because it's been 4 hours. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today on the Viking Age podcast. We do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel, but we're also in podcast form the very next day. So like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. I am Chris Schad. He is Adam Patrick, and we will see you on Monday. Frank.